In the eyes of the public, they were dazzling stars, celebrated for their beauty wealth and what seemed like perfect family happiness. But behind those glittering lights, many carried painful secrets. Children born with deformities, illnesses, or disabilities. Some sold off their entire fortunes to pay for treatments, giving up the spotlight to fulfill their duty as parents. Some sank into deep depression out of helplessness. But there were also those who chose to keep the truth hidden sometimes, even in ways that caused their children to bear scars, both physical and emotional, that would never heal. So, who were these stars of the Golden Age? And how much pain did they endure as they watched their children unable to live the ordinary lives that every child deserves? 1. Dorothy Dandridge, the Oscar star and the tragedy of the child who never grew up. Hollywood in the 1950s, dazzling lights, glamorous red carpets, the wild rhythm of jazz. And at the center of all that glory, the name Dorothy Dandridge rose like a legend. She was the first Black woman to break through the wall of segregation, nominated for an Oscar for her role in Carmen Jones in 1954. The Los Angeles Times once called Dorothy the new queen of Hollywood, while Life magazine put her on the cover declaring a new era has begun. But few knew that while the stage lights shone brightly in the shadows behind them, Dorothy faced a pain that haunted her for life. In 1943, Dorothy gave birth to her first daughter, Heroin Suzanne. She dreamed of a perfect family, but just as happiness was within her grasp, tragedy struck. During childbirth, due to a lack of oxygen to the brain, Heroin suffered severe damage. The cold diagnosis from doctors at Cedars of Lebanon Hospital, Los Angeles, was like a death sentence. This child will never speak, never understand her mother, and will need care for life. Dorothy was devastated. Little Heroin could never say "Mom," never smile, never hold a spoon to feed herself, never even dress without help. From that moment, Dorothy embarked on an endless journey of fragile hope. She once flew to New York to meet top neurologists, paid for experimental therapies, even secretly tried risky electroencephalogram treatments just to give her daughter a chance to live like other children. But all she got in return was helplessness and exhaustion. On an NBC television program in 1958, when asked about her daughter, Dorothy broke down crying live on air. She sobbed, "I can sing for the whole world, I can make audiences stand and applaud, but I can't make my child call me mother." The studio fell silent. Many viewers wept. That confession shocked the public. The most dazzling star of Hollywood, the very symbol of beauty and success, brought down by a pain no one else could carry. Eventually, Dorothy had to place Heroin in a special care center. That night, as she signed the transfer papers, she fainted in the hallway, hands trembling, tears soaking the contract. Nurses recalled that she hugged her daughter tightly and whispered, "I'm sorry, baby, I've lost." That wound followed Dorothy for the rest of her life, crushing the heart of a woman who once made Hollywood bow before her beauty. And from that unhealed scar, Dorothy gradually fell into loneliness, turning to alcohol and tranquilizers until her life ended in a small West Hollywood apartment in 1965 at just 42 years old. But Dorothy's tragedy was not the only one of that golden era. Just a few years later, Hollywood was shaken again by the heartbreaking story of star Gene Tierney, the muse of Laura. And more shocking still, the cause of Gene's tragedy began with nothing more than a fan's sneeze. Chapter 2. Gene Tierney, The Beauty of Laura and the Nightmare of a Fateful Sneeze. In 1943, amid the raging Second World War, Gene kept her promise to audiences and her country to visit soldiers at a New Jersey Army camp to boost morale. It was said she wore a classic blue dress that day, smiling radiantly, unaware that fate had set a trap. In the crowd, a female fan slipped past security to shake hands with her idol, even though she was sick with rubella. Just one sneeze, one faint cough, and the deadly virus silently entered the body of the actress, then 3 months pregnant. On the day of birth, Daria, Gene's first daughter, entered the world in chilling silence. Doctors at Lenox Hill Hospital sighed and handed down a verdict like an irreversible sentence. Daria had congenital rubella syndrome. She was completely deaf, Her eyesight fading, her heart with a congenital defect, her brain development severely impaired. A child who would never run, never hear a lullaby, never recognize the face of the mother who had poured her soul into her. It was said Jean collapsed right there in the maternity ward, pounding her chest and screaming in despair. "It's my fault. I killed my daughter." That line, later recorded in her memoirs, became proof of a haunting self-blame. She would sit for hours at the Southbury Training School Hospital just holding Daria's hand, her eyes vacant, lips moving as if in prayer. "If only I hadn't stepped out of that car. If only I had turned away from that crowd. Maybe my child would have been different." But there are no if-onlys in life. That shock sent Jean spiraling into depression. She was hospitalized several times in Connecticut's psychiatric facilities, subjected to electroshock therapy, a brutal method of the era. From a sensual icon adored by Hollywood, Jean became a woman hunched in the shadows, avoiding cameras because she could not bear flashes that reminded her of her daughter's cloudy eyes. In a 1960s interview, when asked about Daria, Jean whispered, "I can play hundreds of roles, but I can't play the role of a mother. I'm the most wretched person." The room went silent. From then on, Jean's career faded like a candle in the wind. The tragedy of Daria etched itself into her heart, leaving behind a somber Jean Tierney living her life in guilt and remorse that could never be erased. Chapter 3. Lloyd Nolan. The shocking truth about his autistic son. In the memory of audiences, Lloyd Nolan was the familiar face of detective films of the 1930s-1940s. With his firm mustache, cold gaze, and stern voice, Variety once called him the icon of justice in Hollywood. On screen, Nolan was always the fearless hero. But off-screen, he was a fragile father carrying the most painful secret, his only son, Jay. Jay was different. From childhood, he wouldn't communicate, wouldn't respond to his parents, often withdrawing into an invisible world. In the 1940s, the concept of autism was so unfamiliar that even Mayo Clinic doctors struggled to diagnose it. People called it a strange disease, while some cruelly labeled Jay insane. In a society steeped in prejudice, raising such a child was deemed a family disgrace. Many Hollywood stars chose silence, hiding their children away in mental institutions, never speaking of them again. But Lloyd Nolan did the opposite, a decision that shocked the public. He dared to speak the truth. At a 1960 press conference in New York before dozens of journalists from the New York Times and CBS News, Nolan choked back tears as he admitted, "I have been powerless before my son's suffering. Perhaps God has too." The room fell silent, with reporters later confessing they wept on the spot. Not stopping there, Nolan turned private pain into a communal force. Together with his wife, he helped found the National Society for Autistic Children, lobbying the U.S. government to fund research into the condition. For a Hollywood star, admitting to an imperfect child was unthinkable. Yet Lloyd Nolan transformed raw truth into a wake-up call for society. Thanks to him, America first heard the word autism in full, something long hidden behind family doors. Chapter 4. Loretta Young and Clark Gable. The secret love child that shattered a daughter's life. In the public eye, Loretta Young of the 1930s-1940s embodied purity, the good girl Hollywood held up on a pedestal. With an angelic face and a lifestyle praised as exemplary virtue by the press, she became an icon of the era. But ironically, the woman celebrated worldwide carried a dark secret Hollywood buried for decades: her affair with Clark Gable, the king of Hollywood from Gone with the Wind. In the summer of 1935, while filming Call of the Wild in the snowy mountains of Washington amid tense and icy forests, Loretta and Gable succumbed to passion. Their secret affair soon had an undeniable consequence. Loretta was pregnant. In a judgmental society where one rumor in the Hollywood Reporter could end a career, the pregnancy was a bomb threatening to destroy her saintly image. In November 1935, Loretta quietly disappeared from the screen, with the press told she was resting for a lung illness. In truth, she had fled to Europe to hide her pregnancy, secretly giving birth to a baby girl, Judy Lewis. Returning to